On June 23, 1985, Air India Flight 182 was scheduled to carry passengers from Montreal to Delhi with a stopover in London. The passengers, a mix of families, young students, and business travelers, filled the cabin of the Boeing 747. Among them were children on vacation, eager to visit family in India, and newlyweds looking forward to their life together. Captain H.S. Narendra, an experienced Air India pilot, and his crew readied the plane, maintaining strict safety standards as usual. But unknown to the crew, a chain of events had already been set in motion. Events that would transform Flight 182 from a regular flight to a tragic page in aviation history. In the months leading up to June 1985, Canadian authorities had received warnings of potential terrorist activity targeting Indian interests. There was rising tension within the Sikh separatist movement, driven by a desire to establish an independent state, Khalistan, in India's Punjab region. Some extremist factions within this movement saw Air India as a symbolic target. Despite these warnings, the complexities of international intelligence and the limited communication between agencies meant that these threats were not fully acted upon. Unknown to most passengers and crew boarding Air India 182, there were powerful forces at play, making them pawns in a larger political conflict they likely knew little about. The bombs had been carefully planted, using unaccompanied luggage checked onto Air India flights without arousing suspicion. The plot involved 2 bombs, set to detonate in sequence, placed in checked luggage. The first bomb was set to go off on a connecting flight in Tokyo, but it failed to reach its target when an explosion took place at Narita Airport. The second bomb, however, was aboard Flight 182 and timed to explode over the Atlantic. The device, concealed in a suitcase, was the work of a small group of separatist militants who meticulously planned the attack from afar. By positioning the bomb within luggage and boarding it at one of the Canadian airports, they hoped to avoid detection while achieving maximum impact. As Flight 182 flew over the Atlantic, nearing the coast of Ireland, everything appeared normal. The passengers were settling in, many of them asleep as the plane made its way over the ocean. At 31,000 feet, just south of Ireland, tragedy struck in an instant. At 8:14 a.m. local time, the bomb detonated, tearing through the plane's fuselage and causing it to break apart midair. The sudden decompression and structural damage meant there was no time for the pilots to react, and the plane fell rapidly from the sky. The passengers and crew had little chance to grasp what was happening as the plane plummeted toward the ocean. In moments, Air India Flight 182 disappeared from radar, and the lives of 329 passengers and crew were lost, becoming the deadliest terrorist attack involving an aircraft at the time. News of the crash spread rapidly. Families of the victims gathered at airports, devastated as they learned the fate of their loved ones. Investigators from Canada, Ireland, and India scrambled to uncover what had gone wrong and began the painstaking task of recovering wreckage and bodies from the Atlantic. For weeks, fragments of Flight 182 and the remains of the passengers washed ashore on the Irish coast, a somber reminder of the loss. The tragedy exposed significant lapses in aviation security and interagency cooperation. Despite early warnings, security measures were inadequate, and communication gaps allowed the attack to proceed unchecked. In Canada, India, and around the world, calls for accountability grew louder. The joint investigation by Canadian, Indian, and Irish authorities confirmed the horrifying truth. A bomb had detonated aboard the plane, causing the mid-air explosion. Through meticulous work with debris analysis, interviews, and intelligence gathering, Investigators traced the attack back to a network of Sikh extremists operating in Canada. It was one of the first instances that showed how terrorists could exploit gaps in international borders and aviation security. Despite years of investigation, many of those responsible evaded justice due to legal and procedural obstacles. Only a few were arrested and tried, while the masterminds behind the plot remained largely untouched, frustrating families seeking justice. The bombing of Air India Flight 182 served as a watershed moment in international aviation security, revealing the vulnerabilities of airlines to terrorist plots. In response, global aviation authorities began implementing stricter screening measures for checked baggage, especially for international flights. It was a pivotal shift that would influence how airlines and airports operate, reinforcing security protocols to prevent future attacks. The tragedy also exposed Canada to the harsh reality of domestic terrorism. This realization forced Canada to strengthen its counter-terrorism policies and foster better communication between intelligence agencies worldwide. In India and Canada, families of the victims held memorials, each remembering the children, parents, siblings, and spouses they had lost. For them, the bombing was not just an act of terror, but a personal and irreparable loss. For years, Air India Flight 182's legacy remained a painful reminder of the complex intersection between terrorism, geopolitics, and aviation security. While aviation policies around the world improved, the victims' families continued to push for more comprehensive reforms and stronger responses to extremist threats. They became advocates, speaking out to prevent similar tragedies. In 2010, Canada formally recognized the bombing as a national tragedy, honoring the lives lost with a memorial. In commemorations around the world, each name engraved in stone is a symbol of the innocent lives lost due to a conflict that spanned oceans and continents. Air India Flight 182's story is a haunting chapter in aviation history and a reminder of the need for vigilance, justice, and compassion. For those who lost loved ones, the memories endure, every birthday missed, every moment left unshared. In their advocacy, they found purpose, working tirelessly to ensure that no other families would suffer the pain they endured. Through time, the lessons of Flight 182 have been woven into the fabric of aviation security and anti-terrorism measures, influencing policies and reminding nations of the ongoing struggle to protect innocent lives.